Dr. Intan.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this motion. It is a timely one, and I laud the effort of my fellow members of this House who filed this motion. In our frequent interactions with our residents, we have come across seniors or elderly residents who have lamented on the different challenges and issues they face, such as the lack of employment opportunities, being financially independent, being neglected by their children, or having strained familial relationships. Mr. Viswa is a resident I've met several times at MPS. He is 70 years old and is married to his 68-year-old wife for more than 40 years. They have one son in his 40s who is in prison. Before their son was sent to prison, he financially supported both Mr. Viswa and his wife. Now that he is incarcerated, Mr. Viswa and his wife have to fend for themselves. Mr. Viswa is adamant that he must find a job to pay the bills and support his wife who has ailing health. While we try our best to give him some interim financial assistance and to get some form of employment assistance for Mr. Viswa, jobs for someone his age are difficult to come by. Fortunately, after several months of appealing for employment assistance and employment opportunities, Mr. Viswa was offered a part-time position. While he is happy to have found employment, I am also worried if he will be all right and if he can continue in his job. The reality is that with families getting smaller and seniors among us who may need to fend, we will end up having many elderly and seniors among us who may need to fend for themselves and continue to work into their golden years. Well, this in itself is not a bad thing, so long as our seniors continue to keep healthy, fit and active, and continue to sharpen their skills. More than health or skills, they need opportunities to be employed and be entrusted with work responsibilities. They may not be able to carry out physically demanding work, but they do have invaluable experience and knowledge that we can tap on. For instance, they can be assigned as workplace mentors to train younger workers, or be tasked to do administrative or information organization work that would require a fair amount of patience, which I am sure they have more of compared to younger counterparts. In the universities and some institutions of higher learning, professors and lecturers are given tenure until they are 65 years old, what we call T65, which is proof that they are able to carry on teaching, writing, doing academic and research work until they are 65 years old. Similarly, I would urge the government to look at how older workers in the public and civil service sectors can be retained in their jobs until 65 years old and offered re-employment contracts only thereafter. In other words, allow for retirement with two options. One, retire at 62 years old, or two, retire at 65 years old, and allow for re-employment up to 70 years old. Our seniors should be given more options in deciding their employment in their golden years. I would also implore the government to make it a requirement for private companies to retain older workers until the age of 65 years old. And these should be older workers across all ranks and not just those in senior management. Companies that demonstrate strong support in retaining their older workers should be commended and given due recognition. For many of our seniors, they take pride in being financially independent and not having to ask their children or anyone else for financial assistance. We must help them be so. There are some seniors who are in the fortunate position of being financially independent or being able to get financial support from their children or other family members, but there are others who are not so fortunate. Mr. Deputy Speaker, please allow me to continue in Malay. Puan Aminah adalah seorang warga emas yang agak kecil orangnya. Beliau berumur lingkungan 60-an tahun dan tinggal bersendirian di sebuah flat sewa. Walaupun seorang cucunya yang sudah dewasa sepatutnya tinggal bersamanya, Puan Aminah mempunyai 4 orang anak. Kesemuanya sudah mendirikan rumah tangga dan tinggal bersama keluarga mereka di flat masing-masing. Mereka semuanya bekerja, tetapi Puan Aminah adalah penerima bantuan kewangan dari pemerintah. Saya pernah berkunjung Puan Aminah di flatnya untuk memberikan barang-barang dapur dan juga berbual dengannya. Menerusi perbualan kami, saya dapati bahawa anak-anak beliau memberikannya antara 10 hingga 20 dolar sebulan dan akan mengunjunginya secara bergilir setiap hujung minggu. Sebahagian besar masa dalam seminggu, Puan Aminah bersendirian. Saya bertanya sama ada wang yang diberikan anak-anaknya mencukupi. Beliau hanya tersenyum. Bantuan kewangan dari SSO yang beliau dapati meringankan sedikit beban perbelanjaan beliau. Bila saya menerangkan tentang akta sara ibu bapa yang ada dan sama ada beliau ingin mendapatkan perintah nafkah di tribunal agar anak-anak beliau akan memberikan nafkah yang lebih untuk menyaranya, dengan cepat beliau menolak. Katanya dia tidak mahu menyusahkan atau memalukan anak-anaknya. Kami terpaksa menghormati kehendaknya. Saya juga pernah bertemu Encik Muhammad dan isterinya, kedua-duanya dalam lingkungan 60-an tahun juga. Mereka telah bertemu saya di sesi bertemu penduduk dan meminta saya untuk membantu mereka mendapatkan flat sewa. Waktu itu, mereka masih duduk bersama anak lelaki mereka dan isterinya di flat 5 bilik mereka, tetapi telah dihalau keluar dari flat itu. Bila ditanya latar belakang situasi mereka, saya dapati bahawa Encik Muhammad dan isteri telah menjual flat 3 bilik mereka hampir 10 tahun lalu untuk membantu anak lelaki mereka membeli flat yang lebih besar dan telah memberikan wang dapatan dari penjualan flat mereka itu untuk membeli flat 5 bilik anaknya. Kini, selepas hampir 10 tahun kemudian, mereka dihalau keluar pula dari flat 5 bilik itu. Mereka amat risau dan tergesa-gesa mencari flat sewa pula. Remuk hati saya mendengar cerita mereka. Bila terkenang kedua-dua situasi ini, saya sering tertanya, manakah keisanan dan belas kasihan kita terhadap orang tua kita? Mengapakah kita begitu zalim terhadap mereka? Orang tua kita sanggup berkorban jiwa dan raga untuk anak-anak, tetapi sebaliknya mengapakah anak-anak tidak boleh membalas budi mereka? Bab peribahasa, adat tua menahan ragam. Mujur ada usaha tekad di kalangan sukarelawan kita yang dapat mendekati warga tua kita dan mengulurkan bantuan yang diperlukan. Namun demikian, tanggungjawab utama menjaga warga tua kita bergantung pada setiap orang anak, bukannya tanggungjawab utama masyarakat atau pemerintah. Ibu bapa adalah anugerah dan kita harus menunaikan tanggungjawab kita dan menjaga mereka hingga ke akhir hayat mereka. Janganlah kita bagaikan kacang lupakan kulit. Tuan Timbalan Speaker, izinkan saya meneruskan dalam bahasa Inggeris. Madam Low is a resident whom I met recently at MPS. She was in tears as she sought help to get a rental flat. Like Mr. Muhammad and his wife, Madam Low lives with a son and daughter-in-law. However, their familial relationships were strained after living together for 4 years, and Madam Low was asked to leave the flat. She is desperately looking for a rental flat as she has no other children and does not wish to live with relatives because she is embarrassed to let them know. In her desperation, she said she wants to take her own life so that she need not be a burden to anyone anymore. For each of these cases above, my heart breaks at the despair and sadness faced by each of these elderly persons. As I said earlier, with our families getting smaller and with fewer children, the dependence on 1 or 2 children will be the norm for each elderly person. And the heartbreak they may face when their only child refuses to take care of them in future, or when they get evicted from their shared home, will be very real. I would propose for the government to look at how our housing policies can be tightened to protect elderly parents who, 1, decide to sell their flat or apartment or house, or 2, those who are compelled or maybe even tricked into selling their flat or apartment or house in order to help their child or children to purchase their own flat or apartment or house. While we respect the decisions of senior elderly Singaporeans to help their children with their own abode, I would propose that we consider having a policy or even legislation that can be invoked to take to task adult children who have benefited from the sale of abode of their elderly parents and who later on neglect or drive out their parents from the abode they have bought as a result of that. This can be something similar to the Maintenance of Parents Act. Hence, the adult children can be made to pay back the full amount received from the parents in the purchase of their own abode when their familial relationships fail and eviction of the parents occur, or they can be made to pay for the monthly rental of the elderly parents should the elderly parents take up a rental flat or apartment. Nonetheless, while we have the Maintenance of Parents Act or a new policy or even legislation to protect elderly parents who are made homeless by their own children, surely we should not need to depend on a piece of legislation that has to be invoked for us to show love, care, or responsibility towards our parents. Shouldn't that be a responsibility that comes willingly from the heart? We should not be compelled to take care of our parents because the law says so. We should do it because it is the right thing to do. I support the motion. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.